welcome to OK Boomer, addressing the oncoming aging in place demand. It is my sincere pleasure to be talking to my peers about this subject and to be bringing along the amazing Jeanette Bock. So I'm going to start by introducing the both of us. Next slide. So Jeanette Bock is from Home Care Assistance from the Greater Toronto Area West. Jeanette's business today is to help match families with in-home caregivers that fit the needs of the client living at home. Her experience working with seniors includes working in retirement living, a geriatric care management company helping seniors in crisis, and with home care assistance. Jeanette comes to the position of Associate Director at Home Care Assistance with tremendous background in serving people. She brings over 25 years of focused dedication and award-winning customer service and problem-solving skills. No doubt her background in the hospitality and shopping center industry enabled the customer-centric attitude fundamental to her way of guiding clients and their families. Jeanette's own family healthcare crisis ignited her passion further. She too has experienced the confusion and emotional turmoil many families suffer when faced with a geriatric care crisis involving a family member and is all too aware of the challenges. And as for myself, I am Melissa Tossell, and I have been principal and owner of Sanura Design for over 7 years. And alongside my team, I offer turnkey services for homeowners and small businesses using intelligent quality design and a sense of humor. Layperson's terms, I do everything on the project from permits and design and construction, coordination, all that stuff. I take great joy in my work and passionately support my community through volunteerism, which is a requirement for everyone at Sanura Design, both every Monday at a local charity called Furniture Bank, and through my association readout in many roles. I also mentor students and those starting their career, and I write and speak where I can to educate the public on design and beyond. So, next slide. First, I'm going to introduce to you the problem. So, why is this so urgent that I'm calling you guys to action? We're all in the middle right now, when we're recording it, actually, we're all in the middle of the COVID-19 crisis. Actually, Janelle and I are in the Greater Toronto area, and we're in the middle of a severe lockdown. And that has brought ahead to a lot of problems in the long-term care that were issues that we had whistleblowers talking about before, but they came to an extreme head. I think many of us have seen and felt the news from that area, and many of you maybe even have been touched personally in one way or the other by the long-term care crisis. And you know what? Baby boomers are learning from this experience. They're learning as they go. They're usually the children of those people in the long-term care crisis. The baby boomer demographic is changing the way we age in the future, and we're going to talk about what that stems from in a second. And I really want to cover why interior designers and architects are best suited to affect change, because we have so much power to change this area. So next slide. Oh, sorry, no, previous slide. Thank you. So Jeanette and I are going to introduce some of the basics. So I have up here some pretty statistics for you to look at, which I don't need to go over because you guys can read. So we're going to talk about personality. So Jeanette, let's talk about they're not old.
No.
Talk about their personality.
They're not old. They are active. They want an active lifestyle that includes travel, golf, activities, social life, with little responsibility because of the travel. They want to be able to lock up and go away, but they don't see themselves as old. They are living longer. And now they have watched, and they've been a part of the crisis of their parents, and they're watching the whole thing unfold, and they're saying, that's not for me. That's not what I want. And so they're looking for different options.
Yeah. And so as you mentioned, they want to travel. This is the reason why in my personal business, I don't call this aging in place. I call it forever home. Because of this baby boomer demographic, they don't like looking into aging in place because they're not old. That's for my mom, who's in long-term care, which we can't help, by the way. Mm-hmm. They planned ahead, which stems because most of their parents didn't. They honestly, to be perfectly candid, they're not going to put up with the crap their parents are putting up with right now. We're being stuck in a long-term care home. Jeanette's going to go over what that actually looks and feels like for those of us who aren't as familiar with long-term care. They're planning ahead. They're planning for retirement. They're planning so they can travel through retirement. They're not going to sit on their front porch and age for a few years because they learned it's more than just 5 or 10 years now. It's like 20, 30 years you're going to be sitting on your front porch. And the housing situation they want to be in needs to reflect the fact that they're not old. And they're also planning ahead financially. So we have this statistic about the money up there on purpose. They're going to be $750 billion is going to be transferred to baby boomers through their parents. And so they also planned ahead. So that's great. Next slide. Now I want to go through our options. I want to talk to you about where this is coming from. So Jeanette, talk to me about the options their parents had.
So for the most part, their parents were either staying at home, or when they needed additional care and they didn't have caregivers, they were going into long-term care. So we've also referred to long-term care as, it's been referred to as a nursing home, or it used to be called an old age home. It's very institutionalized. It's very similar to a hospital. Some of them were built in 1970s, so they're pretty decrepit. They're outdated. It's government has subsidizes this type of housing, but there's really not a lot of choices. It's the government is in control of who goes in, when they go in, and there are usually people in there that have high care needs and or have significant advanced dementia. So. Yeah, or retirement living, but retirement living was really a newer thing for our parents. They're not familiar with it, and so some people went, some people didn't. They really wasn't a big option for them.
Yeah, and we were discussing in the rehearsal that there is this resort living that their parents never had access to. There were some basic retirement communities that were available. So seeing their parents go through this situation where in their home, they had so many problems. They never planned ahead. They're living with conditions that were built for young, very abled people. They were not built for a wide majority of the population. And so they responded to this without any assistance from anyone else to date. And so I'm going to go through the other one, which is on the right, their response to this crisis and to aging. So they have already come up with co-living. So co-living, if you're not familiar with the term, means when a few people, normally a group of friends, will share a house together. So typically they will share common spaces. They will all use the common spaces together. And then they'll typically have a private bathroom, a private bedroom, and maybe a little bit of living space in there, depending on what they do. That has come out of the affordability factor here in the Greater Toronto area. It's definitely been a factor, affordability. I can't afford to maintain my home. They can share expenses and repairs. And then the next one is very interesting. I bet some of you are saying, what the heck is NORC in all caps? It stands for naturally occurring retirement communities. And in my research with older adults and this sort of subject, this was very interesting. This is led by no one. No one has built these buildings to suit older adults. This means that they've taken an apartment building, it happens in rental apartment buildings as well as condos, and a greater population of older adults are living there with younger people. So this means they are teaming together to pool services, to pool interests. They might even be approaching people in the building about getting certain services in the building. As I said, nobody set this up, but there are very many. That's why they're called naturally occurring. And the third one is what we're going to be discussing today, aging in your own home. So for Jeanette and I, this is two different ways of doing this. So it could be a detached, semi-detached townhouse situation, or it could be in a condo. And that particularly, Jeanette, we were discussing that for your clients, that's going to be a top option for them.
For the most part, for those that were living in a family home, most of them will have downsized to a condo living type of atmosphere. So either apartment and or a sort of a one-floor condo. Most of them, yeah. The ones that haven't moved out of their home, that's the ideal initially. Yeah.
And as we discussed, that really ties into wanting to travel. So definitely the baby boomers who love that travel, you want something, you don't need to shovel the snow, you don't need to cut the yard. If you're doing some gardening, you can do it on your balcony. It's not a big deal. You can, as we were saying, you can just lock it up and leave it. If you need to travel, you can be gone for 6 months of the year, live in Mexico or Florida or things like that. So next slide. So we're going to discuss now, I want to go over the next slide. There we go. Thank you. I wanted another thing. So we're setting up the basis of why you should care, what the information is that backs behind this, because I know that's important to our architects and our interior designers. So let's talk through the challenges of aging in your home to date, because if you're not in this space, I think there's many things that you're not aware of in the aging in place and why it's so difficult to do right now. And this will lead us to why it's so easy for us as interior designer architects to change this situation in the long run. So the first thing I want to discuss, Jeanette, is quality of life. So we discussed the top solutions are retirement living or long-term care. Talk me through that a little bit, what the pros and cons might be.
Well, the pros and cons with retirement living right now, I mean, we've seen this through COVID, is, there's a lot of rules in place in retirement living. There's routines and regimens involved. And so many people that want to live in their own home, they do until they can't. And usually it's a healthcare crisis that's happened and they can't return home because it's a two-story home. Full bathrooms are not on the main level. Master bedrooms or bedrooms are not on the main level. They're typically on a second story. So although they would like to stay and age in place in their home, the actual functionality of it doesn't make any sense anymore. And so they need to move into retirement living and in very advanced cases into long-term care. So if there was, well, we'll get into that later, but the other thing I'm seeing is that many families are trying to Band-Aid solution it where, they might put a hospital bed into their den or into their dining room, sometimes a living room where there's a hospital bed, and then to get over the hump of not having a bath or shower on the main level, they're just experiencing sponge baths. So that's not a quality of life. That's a Band-Aid solution, not a solution. So,
absolutely. Just a brief little bit. I have heard very many things about how expensive retirement living is, especially, as we mentioned, those resort communities, the ones you really want to live in, and how expensive it might be if your home is not at all tailored to aging in your home, that long-term care could be expensive.
It can be. It's subsidized by the government. It really depends on, many seniors believe that the government would look after them in their old age, so they didn't save. And so those individuals are the most affected because they don't necessarily have an option. The cost of care is expensive, whether it be in retirement living or whether it be in any of those congregate living settings. And then it can be very expensive to bring in the care that you require at home. Yep. So, yeah.
So for one of the things I want to touch on briefly is social connections. That's a big part of quality of life. And one of the topics that was interesting that you brought up, that we lose track of. One of the things we lose track of for some reason in our ageist society, and it's not all of society worldwide, it's very, very Western culture based, is that for some reason, once you sort of hit a certain age, you are no longer a person. You're just like a lump of flesh, and you're not this person who's lived on this world for, I don't know, like 90, 80 years and been through so many things. So one of the things we do is we group older adults together, and that's not necessarily, if we look at many other cultures where older adults are welcomed and integrated into everyday life, they have a much richer experience. So talk to me about why multi-generational living might be good for both sides.
Well, I think there's this, being with younger people keeps seniors active, keeps their minds young, and because they're talking to people and they're working with people that are living a different life than they did potentially. So they're keeping them informed. There's so much that a senior can actually offer in the way of knowledge and wisdom, and even, you know, teach them how to do trades and things like that. And that then gives the senior purpose. They give them that sense of a purpose, and that is required. You know, they're great. I mean, imagine having a younger senior that could be your babysitter within these congregate living settings, like these NORCs, let's say. And the younger people within these communities can also help them. Hey, can you change my light bulb? Instead of the senior getting up on the ladder to do those things. So those types of, the idea of a village raising or supporting a senior in the later years is a wonderful thing. There's so much give and take, and there's so much transfer of knowledge and help and everything. I think that's a more preferable way of, you know, looking at aging. And I think many people want to do that. They want to be involved in that.
Of course. And we're discussing condos and detached homes, and the social connections part of those can vary hugely. So one of the things we brought up is, if you're aging in your own home and say you need a scooter now, you have steps to your front door, you are now isolated from your entire neighborhood. And one of the benefits of aging in your own home is that support network. Once you've lived in a neighborhood so long, they become family around you. You may have talked your kids into living in the same neighborhood, so you can go meet your grandkids when they come home from school and take care of them for your kids that are probably both working their butts off full time. There's a lot of great things involved if we have a great community for aging. If your grocery store is easy to access with a scooter and things like that. So something as simple as putting a few features into detached homes will mean that many seniors can age in a way that ideally we also want them to age. We want them to be able to stay in their own home a certain amount of time and contribute to their community in that way. And also, as we were discussing in condos, it's even more of a big village in some cases, and that's how these naturally occurring retirement communities crop up. So the next portion is definitely your bag, Jeanette. So let's talk a little bit about the challenges right now with healthcare support.
So if you are living in your own home, you really only have a couple of options. You have your family and friends. They can help support you, you know, with limited resources they might have or limited time they might have. But then there's the local health integrated network here in Ontario, and they're basically the gatekeepers for any kind of additional home care support provided by the government. Now everyone thinks, great, free home care. Well, let me give you an idea of what that might look like. It's maybe, so I have a client that's about 103 years old, and what she's currently getting is 10 minutes 3 times a day. And this woman is 103 and she's bedridden. So, I mean, that's one scenario. And then the most I've really heard, it really depends on where you live. And that's what decides that and how you present and your physical ailments, that sort of what type of assistance you need determines the care, but there's minimal. So that's my point. It's a minimal free home care service. And then with private home care, So we can do a great job in your home and help many people that have not only physical ailments that require some assistance during the day, but also for those that suffering from cognitive decline, so dementia, Alzheimer's, that sort of thing. But just to give you a reality, it's between $34 and $37 an hour in the area in which we live, so in the Toronto area. And that has increased this year with COVID due to demand and the shortage of PSWs. So that's one influencing factor. So you're looking at, if you needed 24/7 support for a loved one in their home, you could be looking at $25,000 a month.
Yeah, so that's a huge amount. And we're going to talk later about how that fee drastically lowers when some more independence can be allowed for those living in their own home. And so I want to touch on, we already touched on a few things of safety issues around lack of independence. So there's a lot of safety issues. So with our current stock of homes, if your bedroom is on the second floor and you say have a hip replacement, you now can't do stairs. Or if you're unsteady on your feet, which is usually the case when somebody starts to need something like a walker, it's because they're unsteady. And you have to go upstairs to the bedroom, and then you have your typical 3-piece bath where you have to step over the bathtub while you're unsteady on your feet on one foot. And honestly, for some days that's impossible for me to do, and I'm a perfectly able young person. But for some older adults, that is the biggest place for falls, both in long-term care, both in the home. It's the biggest place. It's the most dangerous place to have falls and have major injuries. So there's a lot of safety issues. And then when you have lack of independence, as we heard, that racks up the healthcare support you need to stay in your own home. Or you now need to go into long-term care because it's just not manageable in your own home anymore. And so I hear some of you in the background going, Melissa, you guys mentioned dementia. You haven't really talked about that. So we're not going to talk about specific ailments. However, dementia is a huge factor with older adults and how we age and how environments are specifically made for it. I just want to do a little highlight that we will be having a workshop for a method called Dementiability in June for AREDO members. We're also hoping to get it to the OEA and the TSA. It's an entire morning workshop. This is incredibly in-depth. It's deeper info on designing to enable better living for those with dementia. So rather than band-aiding the problems, we're looking at deeper solutions to enable them to live better. And it's backed by multidisciplinary research and neuroscience. This isn't somebody thought up one day and decided to do a seminar on. So if you're interested in that, you can look it up at AREDO. We're going to have information in the next couple of weeks. So we're not going to talk about dementia here because that's going to do a way better job than we could here. Next, I want to bring up funding issues is a big problem with aging in your own home. So we talked about government support is low for home care, which is one part, but it's also incredibly low for assistance programs. I've dealt with this personally with clients. It's also incredibly difficult to navigate some of these programs because our clients do not know anything about renovations. Most of them don't. They don't know the process. They don't know how much it costs. They don't know what the steps are. And in some cases, it's only the clients that can talk to the program. But above and beyond that, many of these programs are well aware that they don't have enough money to pay for someone's proper renovation. And in there is definitely not enough money to hire someone to help them, even if they're completely lost. The best they can do is hope you get a contractor who can help navigate them through this process, but they're not going to help them make a better design. Or they may not be able to, especially not for the amount of money they get. Easter seals, other faults. It's just there's no money from the government for these things. So because of that, you have to plan for your
So one of the things Melissa and I had talked about was some of the design problems and aging in place. So one of the many reasons that people are moving out of their family homes is due to the mobility restrictions and being a falls risk. So Melissa touched on that a little bit, but if they can't do stairs on their own and they're unsteady or need assistance walking, that's usually when the families start to discuss and have them, families want them to be in a safer environment. There's also, if there was a shower on the main floor, then they would be also then able to continue to be able to bathe and go use the toilet as you and I would without any challenges. The challenge with a powder room is the size. If they are needing their walker or a wheelchair and being able to transfer, a small powder room is not going to work for them. Having wider door openings and on closet doors and walk-in closets, bathrooms, and also improving angles so that they can easily maneuver with their walkers and wheelchairs into different rooms. Obviously, I think Melissa talked about the ground floor entries. So no steps on the outside of the home so that if they are reduced to being a wheelchair and it's an electric one, they can easily get out of their home without, any challenges or without any assistance. And that gives them their independence. And so that they can stay in their home and they can get out to the store and those types of things. The other one I thought of was main floor laundry rooms. Then that's another challenge for them to go down the stairs into the basement and to do their laundry and then bring a basket up when they're already unstable on their own. It's very challenging. So some of those are some of the reasons that when proper design is put into place, then it allows the senior to remain independent longer and remain in their home. So really huge. Very important aspects. So Melissa would be telling you at this stage that the importance is about encouraging the planning ahead. So if there was an opportunity to purchase the right home with none of these challenges, then they'd be able to stay and age in their home longer, which ends up saving them quite a bit of money. And so they don't have to move. So as long as they have these, some of these challenges rectified in the actual build and planning of these living environments, that would go a long way. And it would also help when they're not, like Melissa was also mentioning, the challenge to be able to customize later on. And they're often doing renovations to their home at an age when they're not really aware of some of the changes and they need extra help, but they just want to get that bathroom on the main floor done. So Melissa I'm sure she'll come back and tell you a little bit more about some of the design changes.
There we go. I can hear you. Can you guys see me?
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Melissa.
Okay. I apologize, guys. This is the great part of technology. So how we want to transition now. So next slide. The big question: how can design help solve these problems? So many ways. So those who wish. So the first category is helping those who wish to stay at home, whether it be a detached home or a condo. Some of the issues we'll talk about are mainly for detached types of homes, so detached, semi-detached townhouses. But some of them still apply to condominiums, and I'll highlight that as we go. And then next, we'll talk about the really big thing, which is including a new design. So Jeanette, there are some really big advantages to staying in a home equipped for aging in place. Like it lowers the amount of care, increases independence. Talk to us about that.
I covered that while you were gone.
Did you? Okay. Well, way ahead of you. So that's fantastic. So professionals can help. So beyond that, the great advantages for aging in place, we want to talk about. So one of the big ways is those of us who do deal with individual clients, whether it be a custom home, whether it be renovations, whether it be any of those things, an interior designer or an architect. When you're talking to clients, we want to talk to clients about planning ahead. I'm sure many of us already do that. You're telling me, Melissa, I already do that. But if you're talking to them about more specifics, so rather than just let's make sure this design is classic so that you don't need to redo it in 10 years because this is your forever home. If it's for your forever home, maybe I should encourage you to do a transitionless shower or a main bath on the main floor. If maybe it's an empty nester and the kids have left, they've never done renovations. This is a classic scenario. And they're redoing their kitchen, their main floor, they have a powder room down there. Maybe one of the things you encourage is maybe we should make that powder room a main bath. Stick a shower in there. We pointed out many advantages to this when we were in rehearsal, one of which is a couple things. As you're not older and you're just aging in that, and you're just living in that home, I personally have a picture of every one of me and my two brothers covered from head to toe in mud from when we thought that was a great idea. So I can imagine it's way better to get your kids into that shower on the main floor without getting that mud everywhere than it is to get them all the way up to through the house and up to the second floor. The other really common thing is, I also wrote an article, it's not just older adults. Many of us, our kids are our pets, our dogs. And so if you have a dog, it's much easier to do it in something like a transitionless shower rather than to get them over and into a tub. And for older adults, it might be hard to lift them up to do that. So we're talking not to do everything at once. That's the big scare people think of when they think about planning ahead like this. Like, oh, I need to renovate my home all at once. But typically you're going to do this in stages. We know it. It's typically, we might have someone got the whole house, and that's a great opportunity to plan ahead. But if you don't, when you redo that kitchen, make sure it has enough space for someone to navigate it with a scooter or a walker. Make sure there's some basic fundamentals of aging in place in there so that when they get to that point, they can use it. Things like doorways. Jeanette, how important are doorways?
Huge.
They can make such a huge impact. We have a great story about that we're going to tell you later about the big impact that made for one of her clients. And another way is we have a different way of approaching problems. We're intimately familiar with renovations. We know the process, and we have a different way of solving them. So if we are more involved in this space, we can come up with better solutions to the problems in these spaces. A lot of them, as we discussed, are Band-Aid solutions right now. We can do so much better. And so next, we're going to I'll highlight a few different areas, and then we're going to go into more detail on the simple solutions that you can implement when you're doing, I don't want to make this sound like an infomercial, the simple solutions you can apply now to your renovation projects to make a big impact. Like it should have that voice in there, right? But there's such simple things that can be applied to new projects. And even if I could get a couple of you to do this in your projects, it would be amazing. So we're talking condo buildings. Architects, you guys are doing the layouts for these condo buildings. You're doing the layouts of the suites typically. It's not us interior designers always getting a hand in doing the actual layouts. That might be an architect. So it is so much easier to put in a transitionless shower when they're constructing the building. It's way more difficult, speaking from someone who's tried to do this after the building's already up and you are now altering, that fire protection between two suites, which is not a good idea in a condo building. Not to mention, you're inconveniencing the person below you if you have to mess with some of the plumbing. So many things like this, condo building way easier to plan ahead, rental buildings, because not everyone is going to want to own and not everybody is going to be able to afford to own. So rental buildings are also a place where we should have aging in place. Not all of it necessarily, but having a certain percentage of the suites allowed to age in place. We're talking about the benefits to communities for that. And new home communities are another huge thing. So our current stock of homes, those of us who do renovations, are the people that need to be on the ground floor to be talking about this to our clients. But anyone who does, again, architects are the big one for this. It's not us interior designers planning out home developments with these big builders. It's you guys that are in that room with them planning this out. And so even if a few of these buildings, do you know the amount of money boomers have and how much more they will flock to a development or a condo that has aging in place features? Even if you call it forever home features, you can use that free on me. Even if you are to approach it from that mentality, these baby boomers are going to flock there, especially like, hey, age in our condo with us, be among, you don't have to live with just all the older people. You can live with the young folks and live in a great community. And it's much easier to take care of, and it'll age with you. So there's a lot of really great points to this. And so what are some of these simple solutions, you ask me? First, I want to highlight, next slide. So first, I want to highlight the whys. We already talked about aging in place a lot. Another quick point I want to touch on is visitability. Visitability is huge. And especially in these detached home communities, this is where someone young having a visitable home is really important. You imagine like Thanksgiving, or even if you want your family to come over for a barbecue, grandma can't come. I have 6 steps up to my house. Someone's going to have to carry her scooter up. Oh, but once she's in there, I have a powder room. Oh, but she can't fit in the powder room. You know what's going to happen then? This happens. They have a lot of time to plan. Grandma's not going to drink water or any liquids the entire day, so she doesn't have to go to the bathroom when she's there. It's a hard reality, and it's not comfortable for someone who is her family, because that's one of the top problems that you go into the hospital for as an older adult, is around dehydration, because we don't drink. They don't drink enough. So this is what's going to happen, but it's very easy. That can very easily be solved by having the main bath on the main floor, having the wider doorways, which aren't a big deal when you're building a home. They're a real pain when you're renovating it. And then having a ground floor entry on grade. So for those of us who don't know what on grade means, that means there's no steps whatsoever. We have the technology now. We don't need to have steps up to our front door anymore. It is not a necessity anymore. And so that's one of the easy solutions, is on-grade entrances. As I discussed, we don't need stairs to the front door anymore. And we can all agree it's way easier to do when you're building a home. It's impossible to do once you've already built that first floor up like half a story off the ground. There's way more solutions to solve these problems now. Ground floor full bath with a transitionless shower. It has so many advantages throughout the day. Can you imagine something like, if I will call it clean freak, I know that's not maybe politically correct, but if you're a clean freak and you or your husband comes in and does a really grungy workout, you go for a really good run, you don't necessarily want them walking through your entire house. And like my father personally, he smells when he sweats. Not all of us do that. And so having him walk through the entire house isn't convenient, but having him take a quick shower downstairs is way more convenient. Or maybe you're in the garden and you're planting things and you're all dirty and you don't want to get through the whole house for that. So there's so many reasons why that's important, and a room that is simply able to be converted to a bedroom later. So that's typically something like a den, a home office, could be a second living room, something that very easy. You could just put doors on the doorway and it would be fine. Larger doorways. We're talking not 24-inch doors, not 30-inch doors, but closer to 36-inch doors. This is great for everybody. It's easier to get through these doors. It's easier to carry furniture through them. But more importantly, it's easier for walkers and wheelchairs to get through that. It makes these much more inclusive communities, and it makes these valuable members of society able to visit other people's homes and interact with each other, mind you, after COVID is done. And one thing Jeanette highlighted, which is very important, is ground floor laundry, or laundry that's very accessible. Because what happens when you get older, and is terrifying for Jeanette to hear from her clients, is that my client, who's very unsteady on their feet, is taking a heavy basket of laundry from their bedroom, going down 2 flights of stairs, and then coming back up 2 flights of stairs with the heavy basket of laundry. I wonder if that's where some falls might happen. Honestly, it's difficult for me to carry a basket. As I say, a regular person carry a heavy basket up and down stairs all the time. It's not something any of us like. So that's another big thing. These are easy things, guys. I'm not asking the world, but when you are doing new builds, it's the easiest thing to put in there. And now is the great story from Jeanette. Talk to me about how much can be solved with even just door openings.
So I'm just gonna tell you a quick story about a woman that was 95. She was amazing. She had all of her marbles, sharp as a tack. She unfortunately had to have the lower part of her leg amputated, and they would not provide her with a prosthesis because of her age. So she ended up back in a wheelchair, but she was determined to go home to her apartment where she had her friends, her support system, everybody was there. I started working with her to figure out how she was going to manage when she got home. So the biggest challenges for her were the entry door, the very sharp angle into her kitchen from her wheelchair, then the closet door, the walk-in closet door was too narrow, so she couldn't get in with her wheelchair to her closet to gather her clothes. But the most important one was she couldn't get into the bathroom. The bathroom doors were too narrow, so she couldn't toilet, she couldn't bath. And then, so fine, she was using a commode, but then how do you clean that? And eventually, the thing is that she ended up having to go back into the hospital, and her only option was long-term care because she couldn't afford retirement living. So that could have all been prevented had there been a solution had she been able to be in an apartment that would be conducive to a wheelchair and her managing that piece of it.
Right. So. I mean, in that situation, I'm sure and we underestimate little things like being able to get into your walk-in closet and get clothes.
That's right.
That's a huge part of being independent in your own home. And the bathroom part, that's terribly embarrassing. We were discussing this in an entirely different talk that no one wants to wipe a butt, and no one wants their butt wiped by someone else. So things like, that's why bidets are they're so common, they're so easy to install and things like that. But just as simple as having that doorway, even if she had a bathtub in there, it would have given her so much more independence than she had, and then she had to move out, and that's a preventable story right there. This is why we're talking to you guys. So next slide. Oh, okay. All right, I don't have one in here. That's okay. I'll talk about it anyway. Big picture solutions, guys. I want to inspire you. You have so much power, and many of us don't understand the places we could be at, the tables we could be at. First of all, best use of the government support money that does exist. As I talked about, all of these programs are made typically by diplomats. They're not put together by someone who knows home renovations, who knows design, who knows client needs and ergonomics and other things like that. There's many professionals that should be at that table, but interior designers and architects should be at that table. They should be one of the first people they're talking to. Like, is $15,000 feasible to redo these kind of projects our clients are doing? Or maybe there is, by the way, a minister of seniors. I don't know if everyone's aware of this. There's a minister of seniors, guys. And you know what's happening? They're giving this minister of seniors a budget in order to affect change with seniors in Canada. Do you know what could be part of that? Simple solutions from someone in our community to say, this is the best use of your money. If you were to prioritize one thing with the money you're getting, you should do this. This is the rebate you get back from the government. You know what you could do for a project and get that rebate? These would be really great projects to get the best bang for your buck if you were going to spend your hard-earned money on it. These are, right, Jeanette, because our
Yeah,
clients,
absolutely.
your clients know anything about renovation projects and where their money would be best spent.
Yeah, no. And they're not really looking at it. They really rely on you professionals to be able to guide them and provide them the latest solutions that are available, for sure.
And definitely, I can assure you, being on the side of a registered interior designer from Arito, I am a passionate supporter of my residential design community, because you know what? We have it the hardest. No one understands what we do. Many times when I explain how much I help clients, I have gotten, if I had a nickel for every time someone went, oh man, I really could use you for my last renovation, I would be very rich right now. Most people just don't realize that's something we can help with. And if we're looking at bigger picture situations, how about being at the table for big solutions? By the way, I don't know if we have some architects in the room who are aware of this. I went to a TSA presentation on some of the advisory committees for design in areas I didn't know had advisory committees. As an interior designer who could be someone at that table giving valuable input, because we're very detail oriented, we're very user oriented on the nitty gritty inside stuff, we could be providing valuable feedback on some of these things. But I didn't even know these advisory committees were even a thing. Is this for everyone? Absolutely not. This is not for everyone. Not everyone's going to sit up and go, I'm going to go talk to such and such. The big thing I want you to go away with and mull over is just a simple fact of wanting to make change and reaching out to your network and telling them. If you want to be on, like, for example, maybe the Minister of Senior says, maybe our seniors need a better guidance on renovations. Maybe we need to stop renovation scams and people taking their money. Who would we talk to about that? They could definitely talk to an organization like Build, who is very involved in that sort of community. But what about interior designers that are used to managing that whole project and could give great input on that project? Or an architect who's also very aware of this entire process to give better advice on what homeowners realistically need to know that they don't know. There's so many great stories. There is a wonderful individual who is big in this community. Her name's Linda Kafka. I wanted her to be on here. Unfortunately, she couldn't make the panel, but one of the reasons I wanted her to be here is she's a connector. I know many people like this. I'm ending up turning into that a little bit. And Jeanette, you're another connector, where if you have someone in your community that say they're very passionate about accessibility in public spaces, and you're like, I want to change things, Jeanette, I really want to change things. And someone in your community says, you know what, I heard of this government program. I was just talking to a friend of mine that really wants to change accessibility, and they're looking for people to advise with. These are the situations that really happen. These conversations happen. Linda has done this. She's very involved in many things, and some of which leads her to be connected to government things that are happening, new programs, new initiatives that are happening. And if you've already talked to someone like her and said, I am so passionate about aging in place, I want to make sure that our community is doing what we can to help, she's going to connect you. You'll be on that advisory board because she's going to put your name forward. And that's what I want to leave you guys with before we take questions is, there is so many tables we can be at. Rather than sitting back and saying accessibility is so bad in Toronto, it's not nearly as good as it could be, maybe someone steps up and does something. That, you know what, there are committees, they ask about these things. And if they're talking to someone like, I don't know, an interior designer, an architect who deals with the clients that have these problems all the time, they might get better results out of it and get a better perspective of what needs to happen. So I'll leave you guys with that. And as the slide says, I want to thank absolutely everyone who came. This is why I made the title so much fun. I wanted you to know that this wasn't just going to be a boring presentation on things you already knew. I wanted this to be something, why the heck should you care? And why should you be doing something? we have some great comments in here. I want to go over a couple of the comments, and then I'll get to the questions as well. So we have from David Hanna. In Denmark have had great success with architectural program solutions.
Okay, I guess Melissa is frozen again. Unfortunately, I can't see the questions that are coming through at the moment. I'm going to offer up, if you have any questions, Melissa and my contact information, I believe, are included in the slides, and I would encourage all of you to reach out to Melissa or myself if you have any, for myself, any questions about any aging in place problems that I have seen and what I think, how I think you might be able to help. And on Melissa's side of things, if you have any questions about getting involved and moving this dial forward, I would recommend that you reach out to Melissa and connect with her, and I'm sure she's going to take you up on that interest and put you in touch with the right people. Right, Melissa? I'm just talking about how people should reach out if they have questions that we don't get to during this.
Absolutely, yes. You can absolutely get in touch. I love connecting people who care about this. The next thing is interesting, just a little comment that you may or may not agree with. Suzanne Taylor says, the Lynn is broken, especially if you are not in the larger cities.
100%. Totally agree with that. 100%.
I'm sure we could have a half an hour discussion just on that subject. And the first question is, do you have any specific recommendations related to interior design for cognitive impairment dementia? For instance, finishes, materials, safety issues. If you're in the Aurora, you want to attend the dementia. I'm not saying this because I get some sort of portion. I am the person, Jeanette, we have a networking group specifically for professionals who are passionate about seniors and service them. And she brought in this individual, Gail Elliott, who has developed, as I say, interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary. Actually, everyone's been doing research around dementia. No one brought it all together. And her program, why it's called Dementiability, is to enable better living with dementia and to stop overlooking abilities that we think they just don't have and enable them to have them longer. It's going to be an entire morning, 3 hours. It's going to be health, safety, welfare certified. So your whole 3 hours of health, safety, welfare right there. And I can guarantee you are not going to be bored. We're actually having her tailor this talk to interior design. So the exact questions you have from the first question, please get in touch with me. And if you are not in a Rito, I am going to make sure she gets connected to other organizations. The architects would love to hear from her about this. The TSA would love to hear from this. And even an organization like the DDA, I'm sure they would love to do a workshop like this for those of them that do renovations and things in more detail. The more people that know about this, the better. And as I say, all of those things are addressed in there, and it's so beautifully. Just something as simple as signage can make a huge difference. And it's not the colors, it's not the contrast, it's a lot of different things. So if you're really interested, please try to make that. It's only going to be $125, guys, for 3 hours. We all know what we've paid for CEUs, so that's going to be great. And then that was from Christina. Thank you, Christina, and you're welcome to get in touch with me as well. Okay, so another remark is from Anna. She wants to know, a lot of things are for homeowners. What can you do if you rent? That's a very good question. So there's a real estate agent who is dedicated to properties that are accessible properties. It's literally his specialization because they are so uncommon. There's not much you can do if you rent. You have to talk to your landlord about aging in place features. Now, if you want to bring forward some of the statistics we used, you are welcome to say that you can get a lot of money if this in the future, if this is an aging in place suite and it's done properly. It's tough. I can't give you a lot of advice on that because the rules for each landlord varies wildly. Some people you can paint, some people you can't paint. I can put things on my walls. Some people can't put anything on their walls. It's very challenging. Again, if you want to get in touch with me, Anna, we can talk about it more. And then, second question. It seems like many of these accessible features are correlated with luxury design features. Do you think this could be a way to encourage more aging in place ready residences? Whoever said that, yes, Jeanette can tell you, I literally have this as my pitch. It is.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Noticed, you know what you don't have in luxury, really narrow doorways. The other part is as we know, the transitionless showers. I talk to people about this all the time. That's something you see in mansions that people have. They don't have a weird little step over thing. They have a beautiful transitionless shower. Many of these features, yes, absolutely. Especially since as architects and interior designers, we tend to work with the higher end budgets of the community, mid to higher end. So that is absolutely the case. And that is it from us for the questions. As Jeanette said, please get in touch with us if you have questions for either of us or if you want to get in touch. And thank you very much for attending. I hope everyone has a great day.
Thank you very much.